Hey guys, welcome back. Today I want to talk about this post that was shared after the World Championship about Maxx C and other statistics, which I found very interesting. I have not looked at everything, but I want to look at stuff with you today because this is very kind of statistical. So the guy used statistics. You can see that he watched all 264 games of the WCS 2025 and then collected the data. Very interesting. Not only on Maxx C, we will see something interesting later on. And yeah, I know guys, there is the ads on this site. I can't get rid of them. I know everyone recommended this specific ad blocker to me, which does not work anymore. So we have to bear with the Samsung and this Möbelheinrich ad for now. So we have section number 1, where first we see that there were a total number of games recorded for the guy. Thanks a lot for, by the way, to Synthara, who has basically collected all these data points. 264 games and win rate for the turn 1 player, nearly 70%. Significant difference from last year at P0.00195, which basically means that this was not so this P value means this is not random, because it obviously could have been a random thing, but it's so unlikely to be random that we kind of assume that this is not random, but this is because of different causes that we don't know when only looking at this. But this was tested via chi-squared test, which is a test in statistics. So we can basically say that this was not random, but this is by some explanation that we don't yet have. But you can see that's also here. We have the year of WCS 2023, and you can see how the win rate for the going turn, or for the turn 1 player, was significantly higher. This makes sense. We have Malice in the mix, which is just such a strong going first deck. Kind of makes sense, but obviously it's also a bad development, because this means whoever wins the coin toss wins the game. And then we have the mean median turn count. So how many turns were they in the WCS? And you can see right here that we have reduced the median count to around about 3 turns. We can also see this here. Most games were around 3 turns. So over the years, the games have become shorter, which is obviously not that nice. If you're wondering, this here is a box plot, and in this box there lie 50% of all the data points. You have some data points that are like up here, which are I don't know how to call it in English, but they are basically extreme points, you could say. But most of the data points will lie in this box here, which is why this is called the box plot. And you can see right here that we have reduced the number of turns, which obviously also is, in my opinion, you can let me know what you think of all of this, not really a good sign for the game. But once again, we are in this Malice Rise format, and this is just not the greatest, to be honest, especially in this best of 1 format. The best of 1 thing being one of the most, or the biggest problems in my opinion, even though we didn't have this normal format from the rank ladder in the WCS, but still it was kind of like a best of 1 format where either you win the coin toss or you lose the coin toss, and if you lose the coin toss and lose the game, you don't go first on the next game, but they coin toss again, right? They could have also done it the way that the loser will just choose whether he wants to go first or second, but this is not how they did it. So this is not perfectly from the ladder, but kind of close actually. And then we have number of total Maxx Cs activated, 141, percentage of Maxx Cs resolving, 96.5%. By the way, there's something I missed here, sorry guys, but we have win rate. This was the summary, but we will see this in more detail. Win rate of turn 2 player when their Maxx C resolves, nearly 50%. Win rate of a turn 2 player when they either do not activate Maxx C or it got negated, 27.03%. So Maxx C boosts the win rate by 67%, which is crazy. I mean, this is nice. This kind of makes the going second player, it kind of brings it to the point where going second is kind of as good as going first if you resolve Maxx C, because then you are nearly 50-50. But obviously, if you don't resolve Maxx C or it gets negated, then it's pretty bad. So you can make an argument, or could make an argument, that if Maxx C resolves, if it kind of balances the game actually. But obviously this is not something that happens every game. This is just by chance. You have to get your Maxx C basically. So this is not a good argument. But we can see percentage of Maxx C resolving for turn 1 player at 72%, and percentage of Maxx C resolving for turn 2 player at 65%. No significance compared to last year, barely no significance. So this was not significant. This is not too, this is not surprising here. So this could have just been a random sample or a random fact here, a random event, which makes sense. because you can obviously, it could have been the other way around, right? It was just random luck that turn 2 players didn't get their Maxx C to resolve as often, I guess. Then again, if I am the turn 1 player, I have more negates on the board that I can use to negate a potential caught by on my Maxx C. So it makes sense that turn 1 player resolvement would be higher. Win rate of turn 1 player when their Maxx C resolves 61%. Win rate of turn 1 player when they either do not activate Maxx C or it gets negated. 71.7. Win rate of turn 1 player when they either do not activate Maxx C or it gets negated. Win rate of turn 1 player when their Maxx C resolves. So the win rate is higher if I, as a turn 1 player, do not use Maxx C. This is what I'm getting here, which seems strange, honestly. We can see this once again here. We have no resolution, so if the Maxx C does not resolve on turn 2 players win rate based, then we will see that not resolving a Maxx C if you are the turn 2 player is significantly worse than it were the years before. And if you resolved one Maxx C at least, then it doesn't really make a difference. But we can see that the Maxx C basically got more important here, because before the win rate was still better compared to this 27. This is the percentage we got from the top, basically. Win rate of turn 2 player when the Maxx C resolves. We know this already, and we also had this one here. This is the 27%, which we can see in this green thing here. And then we have win rate of turn 2 player when their Mulcharmy card resolves, 73%. Very interesting. This is higher than is the Maxx C win rate. No, it's not. It's lower. It's 10% lower. Okay. But I think he clumped together all of the Mulcharmys because there isn't like a specification on which Mulcharmy it was. But this shows us that the Mulcharmys definitely also make a difference. We can see right here if the Mulcharmy was negated or was not activated. We have basically 7% less here. So there's definitely a difference that the Mulcharmys make. But Maxx C balances it better. But obviously this is given the fact that we can draw and resolve a Maxx C, and the turn 1 player can also use a Maxx C, which the turn 1 player cannot use Mulcharmy. So once again, we can see these numbers that we have just seen right here. We don't resolve our Mulcharmy, we resolve our Mulcharmy. So this is obviously better. There's no big surprise here. And there's something very interesting coming right here. Win rate of turn 1 player with no Dominus Impulse activation is 70%, whereas it goes to 62.5 when they activate at least once. And win rate of turn 2 player with no Dominus Impulse is 30, where it goes to 32 when they activate at least once. So this is kind of strange. Obviously, Dominus Impulse will most likely be a card that was nearly only in Malice, I would say. Obviously, this should make the turn of the the win rate of the turn 2 player better, and it did, but not by much, and it actually worsened the win rate of the turn 1 player, which is kind of strange because we are playing this in Malice, and in Malice it doesn't really conflict with anything, so it doesn't really shut down any other cards in our hand. We can also just set it, obviously, which is not something that is in the data here, but this is very strange. This would indicate that we don't want to activate our Dominus Impulse when we are going first, basically. Obviously, we have a P here, which is, this should not be, this is 0.5. This is not significant. So this could have just been chance, right? And then we have a discussion area here where basically, we have some conclusions from these data points, which we already have gone over, basically. But that's very, very interesting. We can quickly read through some of them. Turn 1 win rate is an all-time high. We knew this thanks to Malice. Yeah, that makes sense. And the Floodgates hand rips. This makes sense, and we have a lot of games, so these are good data points. Number of Maxx Cs activated resolved went down from last year to our Maxx C getting semi-limited. This is also a good point. Maxx C getting semi-limited, obviously you won't resolve it that often. And then we have, this is what I mentioned. The other interesting part of Maxx C is how consistent it is as making the turn 2 player have a 50-50 game, which is nice. Even though the win rate of the turn 2 player dropped significantly, Maxx C does its job as much as last year. So this is actually nice for the turn 2 player. Maxx C is now more effective. 67.2 boost in win rate is goddamn insane, though. This is definitely true. The Mulcharmy cards did look somewhat effective, but not significantly so. I put all the Mulcharmy cards together. This is what I talked about. Because of the sample size, makes sense. Otherwise, you don't get good data points makes sense. Since the top 2 decks had a different Mulcharmy weaknesses, Mulcharmys overall seemed less effective than they could have been. Makes sense. And Dominus Impulse being this disappointing is concerning to me. Purge was only used twice, so I just ditched it. Yeah, we didn't have a lot of decks that could use Purge. Maybe there was some blue eyes running around. It has an effect so goddamn strong that it needs a dual long downside, yet it does jack shit to win rates. Of course, Malice is basically being the only deck that used this card, is a potential bias to the data. However, the lines up with my personal experience of how ineffective a single negant hand trap feels in my own games. This could be the case, right? This is something we don't see right here. Could be the case that in a lot of these games that we have observed right here, where we got these data points from, the Dominus Impulse was the only card in the hand, and yeah, I don't know, maybe this was the only hand trap, and therefore it was kind of bad when going first. It's kind of a strange data. I don't think that we can come to the conclusion that Dominus Impulse is a bad card, but I'm assuming that he did track a lot of different things, because otherwise tracking this Dominus Impulse activation is kind of like strange. Why wouldn't you track like Ash Blossoms or something? I'm assuming that this data point was so strange to him that he mentioned it here, where normally this post was only about Maxx C and the Mulcharmys. But yeah, we can see that we are kind of moving in a bad direction, I would say. Especially this one here is concerning, this being up by a lot compared to the other year, and not by chance, so it was significant. This wasn't random, so this is pretty bad. The yeah, total turns in the games also being less is also not a good direction, but I've talked about this in length over the last few videos, where we are at a bad point right now, I think, and hopefully Konami will change something soon. But nevertheless, very, very interesting. I'm always a big fan of data, looking at the data and seeing what we can learn from there. Thanks to Thera again for watching all of these games, which took around 18 hours. Oh, wow, this is a time investment, but very, very cool. Very, very cool thing that he presents here to us. Let me know in the comments what you think of this. Do you think this is concerning? Are you surprised by Maxx C or the Mulcharmys effectiveness, or maybe by this strange Dominus Impulse result? Then again, I say we should not, I don't know, this is not the most stunning result, especially because both of these values here are non-significant, so they could have just been chance, right? But very, very interesting. Let me know in the comments what you think of this. If you like my videos, please consider subscribing, and a thumbs up and the notification bell, and we will see each other in the next one.